Fritz, a star of the television show American Pickers, has left a detailed note in the window of his $155,000 Iowa farmhouse, which may give an encouraging update regarding his recovery after a stroke. At the age of 60, Frank was rendered unable to move from his wheelchair after suffering a stroke in July of 2022. The United States Sun is able to reveal photographs that were taken in November 2023 of his Davenport, Iowa farmhouse, which is valued at $155,000. It was possible to see crutches in the window of Frank's residence, which is a sign that he might be able to walk again in the near future. The health of Frank. The news that Frank has started walking was disclosed to the United States Sun in an exclusive interview in August of 2023 by a close friend of his. Every single day, Frank continues to get better. It is impossible to return to 100% after a stroke, but he is doing well. The friend had earlier stated to the United States Sun that he is aware of what is taking place. Following that, the friend stated, he is able to walk, but he will always require the wheelchair because he is unable to walk for extended periods of time. You basically lose motion, she said. His mobility was lost. Stroke can affect either the left or the right side of the body. In this case, it afflicted the right side. It's the same old Frank, she said. He possesses a positive mindset as well as a wonderful sense of humor. His frame of mind is enthusiastic. Regularly, we make jokes to each other. The source continued by saying, you have to make the most of the situation so that he has come to terms with everything that has happened. A ramp for wheelchair access has been erected in front of Frank's house in Iowa. But according to a prior article from the United States Sun in January, he is still residing in assisted living. Because Frank lost his linguistic and mobility abilities, that is where he has been. According to a source close to Mike Wolfe, Frank's former co-star on the show, he is currently residing in an assisted living facility. Despite the fact that Frank got his verbal back, the insider continued to assert that the star has had a difficult time working on his mobility. It has been incredibly challenging for him to find the motivation to perform. According to the source, he was able to find the motivation to talk, but when it came to the physical therapy, he's not exactly there yet. A second source who is close to Frank's loved ones asserted that he is recovering at his own time and is not rushing through the process. According to the second source knowledgeable about the situation, he has been working really hard to not overdo himself and stress himself out and to honor his health. In no way is he trying to prove something to himself or going beyond what is reasonable. Respecting what ought to be right now is what he is doing. It is just now that he is receiving physical therapy at the nursing home. I have faith that he will recover. I am confident that he will. A medical emergency. After a friend saw Frank lying on the floor of his house in Iowa on July 14, Frank was sent to the hospital for treatment of a stroke. The call to 911 that was made by Frank's friend from the star's farmhouse in Iowa just before 11 o'clock in the morning was retrieved by the United States Sun. Upon my arrival at my friend's residence, I discovered that he was lying on his floor in a scattered position. He is unable to communicate with me. It's possible that he's having seizures, but I can't say for sure, the buddy remarked. State of conservatory. After that, on August 18, 2022, Chris Davis, a longtime friend of Frank's, submitted an emergency appointment for the celebrity to have a temporary guardian and conservator court documents from Iowa that were obtained by the United States Sun. Frank stayed hospitalized for a month after having the stroke. It was anticipated that he would be discharged to a nursing facility on August 19, according to the documents. It is stated in the filings that Mr. Fritz's decision-making capacity is so impaired as a result of his stroke that he is unable to care for his own safety or to provide for necessities such as food, shelter, clothing, or medical care, without which he may suffer from a physical injury or illness. According to the statement, Mr. Fritz's decision-making capacity is so impaired that he is unable to make, communicate, or carry out important decisions concerning his own financial affairs. In the court documents, there was a reference to an exhibit that was provided by a physician, which confirmed that Frank does not have decisional capacity. The legal documents continued by saying, decisions need to be made for Mr. Fritz's care and placement while he continues to recover and receive treatment for his injuries. It is imperative that a guardian and conservator be appointed in order to prevent any immediate harm from occurring to him. The person who submitted the petition asked for Frank's guardian to be a different longtime friend of his who has been assisting him in decision-making since the stroke. For the purpose of managing Frank's financial matters, a bank would serve as the conservator. The conservator will be responsible for paying for Frank's care in the residential facility, controlling his commercial interests, which include partnerships and companies, paying for his residence and the expenses associated with his day-to-day living, and ensuring that he has adequate transportation to medical appointments and other responsibilities. COMPLICATIONS with health at home. Frank did, in fact, travel back to his home in Iowa for a period of time, but he continued to struggle with his persistent health problems. Prior to this, the United States Sun was able to receive 4,911 calls that were placed from the residence, which ultimately led to Frank being sent to the hospital. On November 17, 2022, Frank's caregiver dialed 911. The reason for the call was that Frank was having a seizure. The operator was informed by her that he just returned home from inpatient rehabilitation for a stroke. Right now, he is experiencing a full-blown seizure, possibly more than one. The man has been trembling. Afterwards, while she was being transported to medical, she inquired with the operator about whether or not there was anything she could do to assist him. And further caregiver dialed 911 on December 7, 2022, reporting that their patient had high blood pressure. During the call, she stated, "I have a stroke victim who is 59 years old and has elevated blood pressure." She could be heard telling Frank, "You have to go because your blood pressure is too high." You could hear Frank groaning in the background as she spoke to him as she was saying this. "Oh," was his response. On December 21, 2022, another caregiver contacted 911 for possible pneumonia. This was the second of two calls that were made simultaneously. Following that, Frank's guardian called the following day. "An ambulance is going to be required in order for me to transport someone to the hospital since I believe they are suffering from pneumonia. As the protector, he suffers from a disability." During the conversation, he said that he was confined to a wheelchair. The American decisions. On American Pickers, Frank had his most recent appearance in March of 2020. After taking a sabbatical from the program to have back surgery, he ran into a disagreement with his long-standing co-star Mike Wolfe, which caused him to leave the show. Robbie, Mike's brother, participated in the show in lieu of Frank so that he could be with Danielle Colby. In spite of their disagreement, the two were able to make amends during the Memorial Day weekend in 2023.